where news comes first. This is WECT News at 11.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for watching tonight. I'm John Evans.
And I'm Daniela Hankey. The rate of autism in this country has tripled in the past 2 decades.
But families of those living with autism can access much more support today than in the past. New at 11 tonight, WECT's Maura McJilton talked to the head of one group working to make that support happen. Now, Maura, one of this person's key points is improving communication with someone who has autism.
Yeah, John, that's right. There are now more therapy options for children with autism, and a big focus is including families and caretakers in that therapy. America's autism cases have tripled in the last 20 years. Families of children with autism have more options for therapy that helps teach everyday skills. Jason Cohn is the CEO and founder of Behavior Consultation and Psychological Services. In his more than 10 years of working with autistic children, he's found one of the biggest barriers is communication.
We're teaching kids to communicate, and a lot of times it's about their areas of interest. And so we utilize those motivations to teach them kind of how to interact about that and the environment around them.
A big part of the education now includes family members and caretakers helping to meet the child's needs.
They are active participants in the therapy and helping decide what's really important for that kid to work on in their particular lives, depending on their situation.
Cohn says awareness campaigns have led to more people learning how to interact with children and young adults with autism.
We believe that we as humans, no matter our diagnosis or our differences, that we're interdependent, that we need each other. And so we think that that I'm better off if I can understand you, and you're better off if you can understand me.
And help overcome the barriers of communication. Now, April is Autism Acceptance Month. The Autism Society says it believes acceptance is creating a world where everyone with autism is connected to the support they need. John Cohn encourages anyone who might need or have a loved one impacted by autism to look at therapy options. We have all that information right now on our news app and on our website.
All right, Mark, thanks for the update tonight.